many of these people have not been several hundred miles from their home. And there are people who are intellectually and internationally bereft of information, and that's always going to happen. And I guess it's people that we just have to put up with. We can't go running around saying, well, you don't know anything about anything, so you can't vote, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so there's very, very, very few people who have had the opportunities that you and I have had.
Well, that's true, and that's something that we need to honor. And, you know, that's one of the reasons why I'm here. I know that's why you're joining, Bob, because I think we all feel a sense of duty to the people who are our brothers and sisters out there. We feel a sense of duty to serve their interests, to protect the freedoms that we have. You know, those of us who do really understand these issues, and there are more and more of us, all the InfoWars listeners and fans and so on, I mean, we have a duty to stand up and support Ron Paul and fight for this freedom, wouldn't you say?
Yes, that's absolutely true, and that's why we do what we do. It's interesting. I ran into a man in his early 60s today, and as you know, I live down in Latin America. So I looked at him and I said something in English, and he started speaking English, which is not unusual. And I said, in the process of talking, I said, well, did you live in the United States for any period of time? You speak like, you know, you're from Los Angeles. And the guy looks at me and he says, well, he said, I really learned my English in La Puente, California. And I said, really? I used to live in Hacienda Heights on the hill right above your town. And what I'm saying here is a small world, and people are the same everywhere.
Well, that's so true.
They all get up and get dressed the same way, and their desires are basically the same. You know, once you adapt to another culture, and that's what we'll call it, it's wonderful because you learn a whole bunch of new nuances to life that you never considered before. It's such a joyous experience being able to live in other places.
It reminds me of in World War II, on Christmas Eve, the legend goes that the soldiers from the Axis forces and the soldiers from the Allies, they put down their guns and they joined together and sang Christmas carols. I don't know if that's true. I think it's true. I think it's historical. And they did that out of a sense of brotherhood and humanity. They weren't at war with each other, not the people. It was the tyrants that were leading the wars. And I think the same is true today. I mean, if we had Iranian citizens right here sitting next to me today, I wouldn't have any disagreement with them. You know, why do the people have to fight the wars for the tyrants that are pulling the strings?
Well, it's a good question, and that's what we're trying to stop. The incident was the First World War. It was 1917. It was on the Western Front, and that actually happened. And I think it might have been an idea that created the book by Eric Maria Remarque called All Quiet on the Western Front. That book didn't end up that way. To me, I was a great disappointment to me when I read it back in, I guess, the 1950s. But I think that story was drawn from that. And you're absolutely right. I mean, you know, why did, when Germany was getting, as a military nation, as they were getting swallowed up, why would 3,000 paratroopers drop onto a frozen lake and somewhere within either Ukraine or Russia, fight back the Russians who were storming them, get on planes which were able to fly off the ice, and they got almost everybody out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that has nothing to do with winning a war. It's survival. And it brings back to what you said. You know, what was that all about? It was about their love of life and the Creator.
You know, speaking of survival, we had a story here on InfoWars. I think this was covered yesterday. I don't have the name of the analyst who covered this, but it was a financial analyst who says that he expects real civil unrest, armed civil unrest in America in 2012. I mean, we've heard these warnings before, and it's not a situation that either one of us, you or I, want to see. But what if it comes down to survival in America? Do you think Americans still have, or enough Americans have, that sense of basic fundamental survival? Or are they just going to lay down and let the government roll over them with tanks?
We have enough. What do we need? 15%. That's really it.
Yeah, you're right.
And if the government decides that they're going to send the military out to round people up, and your own family happens to be in the cordon group to be picked up, well, I don't think it's going to go down too well with Sergeant so-and-so, just put his mother and father on the truck to be sent off to some camp to be exterminated.
Yeah, exactly. You know, the other issue
and I think that's where it's going to break.
Yeah, if they're ordered to actually start firing upon...
And they are not going to get weapons. They might get 25%. That's it.
Who's not going to get weapons? What do you mean?
If they demand them.
Oh, they're not going to be able to confiscate them, right? No, everybody that I know in Texas has like an old shotgun that doesn't work anymore that they're ready to hand over, but they got a real stash of firearms somewhere else that's tuned in, and that's the one that they're keeping. You know what I mean?
Well, every morning they go out with their Barrett.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, Texas is not going to be overrun by force. Not by any means. Bob, are you okay to take some calls?
Of course.
All right, let's do that. The phone lines are open, 800-259-9231. For some of you who have been holding, I do want to address your questions to Bob Chapman, not to any of our previous guests we've had today. So if you don't have a question for Bob, please free up the line. But let's go to Sean in Oregon. You're on the air with Bob Chapman. Go ahead, please.
Thanks a lot. Bob, I get your international forecaster letter, and me and my wife are interested in possibly buying another house eventually. With the rate of foreclosures going up, is now a good time to buy with a low interest rate, or wait till more foreclosures and the housing market goes down further?
I would wait.
You would wait.
If you're going to buy a house and it might go down 20% over the next 2 to 3 years, it doesn't matter what interest rate you pay, you're going to lose money. So if right now the inventory of foreclosed homes owned by banks is 6.8 million homes, and it's projected it will be 9.8 million homes at the beginning of 2015. There is absolutely no reason to have your money tied up in an illiquid asset for the next few years. And then on top of that, let's say, hypothetically, that that's a bottom. I mean, how many years is this going to bump along? 8 or 30? I mean, I don't know, and neither does anybody else.
Yeah.
So you keep on renting, and if the rents go up, you pay them. It beats losing money on the front end.
Good question, Sean. Thank you for your question. Let's go to Tommy in Tennessee. Tommy, you're on the air with Bob Chapman. Go ahead, please.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Bob. How you doing?
Hey.
Good.
I would like to ask you guys about something I've found here. It's Ron Paul's Sustainable Defense Task Force. It's in cooperation with Barney Frank. Okay, we have Billy of the New American Foundation, funded by George Soros. You got Larry, we'll leave it at that, American Center of American Progress, funded by George Soros. Policy Studies, Miriam, George Soros.
Wait a minute, are you saying these are all people who are on this task force that you mentioned? Is that?
Yes, 11 of the 14 people that's on this task force are all funded by George Soros.
But I've never heard of this task force. Bob, have you heard of this task force?
No, I haven't.
It's budget to cut the $1 trillion.
Oh, well, Tommy, we got to roll a break here. We'll check that out during the break, just see if something comes up on that. I appreciate your question and your call. We'll be right back with more calls and questions for Bob Chapman. We're going to other callers when we get back, DJ, Dave, Doug, and others. So stay with us right here on the Alex Jones Show. We'll be right back with a lot more from Bob Chapman. Thanks a lot. Yeah. All right, we're back. Thank you for tuning in to the Alex Jones Show. I hope you've enjoyed our show so far. We have another segment here still with Bob Chapman and taking some calls. And Alex gave me permission to mention that if you enjoy my coverage of this and you want to see some more articles and videos that I put out, they're all liberty oriented. It's all about natural health and health freedom. Just check out my website, naturalnews.com, which is now 4 million readers a month checking out that website. And we also we link to InfoWars a lot. We have the same aligned beliefs on freedom and the Constitution, as does Bob Chapman. So it's great to be part of this alternative news. We're really the new mainstream news. It's just great to be part of this whole effort, changing lives and restoring freedom. Now, Bob, I did check during the break. There is a project, the Sustainable Defense Task Force that the previous caller mentioned. It's called the Project on Defense Alternatives. I don't know much about it, but there was a website. It does mention Ron Paul, but it says that he's a member of the task force, but it doesn't mean his affiliation necessarily endorses the task force findings. So that's interesting. We need to do more looking into this. Got any comments on it?
No, I'm just surprised.
Well, yeah, me too. I hadn't heard of it. So let's just...
It would have to be passive. But
yeah.
I'm sure you'll find out.
We'll put that under the category of more research. But getting back to callers, and I do want to thank our callers. Let's go to DJ in Florida. You're on the air with Bob Chapman. Thank you for calling. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Bob, I talked to you when you were on the Monteith program a month or so ago about the financial tax of Wall Street. This is not my idea. This is Webster Topperley's idea. He said that there's a quadrillion transactions on Wall Street in a given year. If we could go ahead and tax just 50 cents on every transaction when you buy a transaction and when you sell a transaction, and that 50 cents goes directly to our Treasury, we could rebuild our Treasury and we could go ahead and pay off our national debt, which is $250 trillion, according to David Walker, that used to be the accountant general. Make everything solvent again, go back to 1776 with the surplus money that we have left over. We could buy gold and put it into our Treasury, make our...
It's a good question, DJ. Bob, what do you think? New tax on financial transactions, yes or no?
He's absolutely correct. And, you know, this little game that they're playing over in Europe right now, the end theme of this whole thing is not to raise money for the Eurozone or for the European Union. It's to raise money for the UN, the IMF, and the World Bank. That's what that's all about. And although I am all for what the gentleman said, we have to be very, very careful if we craft something like that so that these entities, IMF, UN, and World Bank, do not in any way get their hands on it. Because that's really what this is about. And so isn't the carbon tax, incidentally.
Well, that's the real danger. I mean, if you give Washington more money, they're going to find more ways to waste it. I mean, a new tax, you can't assume it's going to pay down the debt because they won't use it for that. They'll just go into more debt and find more spending programs.
Well, you'd have to mandate it that it couldn't be. But, you know, Washington, it's endless.
Yeah. Bob, we're out of time. I want to thank you for joining us today, and I want to thank all the callers. Great questions today. Thank you for your calls. Thank you, Bob Chapman. The internationalforecaster.com is your website. And thank you all for listening and watching today on The Alex Jones Show. It's been my honor, my duty, really, to serve you here. Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, signing off. Check Alex on Sunday on his show, and then he'll be back, of course, on Monday with the regular Alex Jones Show all week next week. Have a great weekend, folks. We'll see you again soon. Take care.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.